And we are live.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. This is the Health and Government Operations Subcommittee of the Government Operations and Healthcare Facilities. This is our first meeting of the session. And the way we work things in HGO is that we will have a bill hearing and then the bills get assigned to a subcommittee. The subcommittee then takes a look at any amendments, any additional information that we had asked for during the hearing. The advocates and also those in opposition are invited to testify. So, Aaron, can you summarize the bill for us, please?
Yes, House Bill 54 is a departmental bill and it repeals the June 30th, 2025 termination date on the formula that is used to determine the maximum amount of user fees that may be assessed by the HSCRC. So if the sunset is removed as the bill requires, the user fee cap will continue to be based on 0.1% of budgeted hospital revenue or the largest cap amount determined during the immediately preceding 5 fiscal years.
Thank you, Aaron. Uh, is anyone here from the HSCRS? Oh, Delia Kaiser, do you have a question?
I have a question for the analyst. I heard what you said, what it would go back to. If we don't remove the sunset, what happens? Or maybe I asked the question wrong.
Yeah.
I believe it then is determined in the state budget, but HSCRC is on the call.
Okay, who's here from HSCRC that would like to speak to the departmental bill?
I think Deb should be here, but let me figure it out. Maybe that's it.
Okay.
They just had some trouble logging on, so they should be on any second. And Deb from
Morning,
the
Deb.
HSCRC is here.
I'm so sorry.
That's
I
good.
apologize. Is John on yet by any chance?
No,
He is
Okay.
not.
Let me text him. Thank you.
it's okay. We just have the one bill today.
Deb, the question was, without the bill, if the bill doesn't pass, how would HSCRC's user fee be funded?
So it's in the fiscal note, and that may be easier for you to follow than me explaining it to you. But essentially what it does is it takes, I think, the previous 3 years. I'd have to go look real fast. Excuse me, John says he's on, but he hasn't been let in.
I don't see him in the waiting room. I will send him the Zoom link.
They will send the, thank you. It would be the 3 previous years, and the fiscal note says by 2026, we will not have enough funds to continue operating under that budget. So if you would like to wait 1 second, I can find it. I hope.
And John is joining right now.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's on page 3 of the fiscal note.
Thank you. I'm sort of getting my act together. I apologize. I was in a meeting with the legislator. Thank you.
John.
Just
Morning.
the legislator,
Morning.
not us.
Okay.
Another one of your committee members.
Yeah.
Delegate.
Deb and John, we heard a bill summary from the analyst, and wanted to give you an opportunity to make your case for the bill before we hear from the Maryland Hospital Association, who submitted some amendment language.
Gotcha. I'm happy to start in. So I think, as we mentioned in the in the hearing on this, right, what we're really looking for here is some stability in our budget, and to handle our budget in the way that other agencies do. I think our concerns here are really that as our workload has continued to grow, we have to have, as other agencies are able to do, a way to account for inflation, inflationary costs in our budget. That is a really critical aspect of why we think this mechanism, a percentage of hospital revenue, and the removal of the sunset is necessary. And as we move forward and do the difficult work of total cost of care analytics, working more collaboratively with our stakeholders, right? We need that stability and revenue growth in order to kind of keep pace. So let me pause there. Deb, anything to add?
Yes. Is it okay if I continue, Mr. Chair? So I just wanted to thank you, Delegate. I think it was Kipke that said it, what page it was on the fiscal note. So you will see that if you take what we would do is our fees, you take the average amounts from 23, 24, and 25, which would be 20.4 million. And the fiscal note says already we would have a shortfall in 2026. That just shows you our costs are going up every year. They're not stagnant costs. Inflation impacts what we do, as well as additional responsibilities. Over the years, we have found that we're doing much more than just regulating hospital fees. There's much more in the public policy space. Much of the things that come from you all in the legislature asking us to review and develop policies on debt collection, on looking at trauma fees, looking at ED wait times, and facility fees. That's all new territory that we have to work on. And every year we're getting more and more. That's wonderful. We think we need to develop those types of policies with our partners, but that takes resources. And as you heard John say, our partners, the hospitals and others, are asking us to reanalyze some of our policies today, redo them, and we have agreed, and that takes resources and time. So our budget really does need to move, and the best way to do that is having it consistent with what other agencies are doing that are similar to us in terms of regulating an industry. The MIA has no sunset. They've never had a sunset as long as I've been doing this on their fee. And it is based on a formula similar to what we have asked for in statute 3 years ago. The Public Service Commission, which also specifically regulates an industry, has not had, to my knowledge, a sunset ever on theirs. And they also do a similar no cap, but growing with the industry, looking at the assets of the industries that they regulate and taking a percentage. So we are doing something that we think is fair, reasonable, and that other agencies are doing as well, and that it's been working, and we should be able not to have to continually feel that we're treading water and we have to come back and have these types of conversations with you to continue to have our funding source. We always have to go back to the legislature for our budget hearings. So every year we are being reviewed to make sure what we're doing is in line with what the statute says, and they can see what our budget, what we've been doing. Additionally, we give back money if we don't spend it all. So we have done that last year. So we're very responsible with the money. We found that we actually spent less than what was brought in. So the next year's revenue, we took down the fee. And finally, it's a complete pass-through to the hospitals. They do not have any impact on their bottom line at all. It gets passed through in rates, like most of the fees that HSCRC, I'm sorry, that the hospitals incur. It's a pass-through in rates for all ratepayers, Medicare, Medicaid, commercial carriers, private pay, all. So I think that's all the reasons why we really think this is extremely important for us to continue to do the important work that you have entrusted us to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. And it looks like you may have already answered Delegate Johnson and Delegate Hill's questions.
Yes, that's awesome.
Let me recognize Delegate Kipke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just out of curiosity, is there could you send me whatever, I'd like to get a better understanding of the total scope of what the organization is involved in. I'm looking at the website. I mean, I obviously know about the hospital rate setting, but in talking about other things, you reminded me of a few that, our committee was a part of asking you to do. But I'd like to get a better understanding of what the $20+ million is going towards beyond the hospital rate setting system. And you don't have to do it now, but if you could maybe even a conversation about it would be helpful.
No problem.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have questions for John or Deb before we turn it over to the Maryland Hospital Association to explain their amendment? Denny, Delegate Taveras?
Yeah, I just want to say that if whatever information that you provide, Delegate Kipke, we could all also receive it because I'm also curious about that as well. Thank you.
Is it all right with you, Mr. Chair, if we give the information to Aaron and then Aaron can disseminate it to the subcommittee?
Can you handle that, Aaron?
Sorry to put you on the spot, Aaron.
Thanks. Hi, Natasha.
Hey, good morning, Chair. Good morning, members of the committee.
Good morning. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for providing the opportunity for us to explain our amendment. So our amendment was to extend the sunset from 2025 to 2027, so by 2 years. This is a challenging time for hospitals as we head into the new AHEAD agreement. We presented just yesterday, along with HSCRC and the department, to Senate Finance, and we're supposed to present to the Health and Government Operations Committee as well. But it went so long, it went 3 hours. And that really goes to how dense the subject matter is, how much there is to learn about the AHEAD agreements. And so hospitals overall are very wary of any sort of automatic fee increase, escalations simply with no end in sight. Particularly as it comes to the AHEAD agreements, they have a lot of questions on the scope of responsibilities and authorities that HSCRC will have. There's questions regarding, the new Population Health Trust Fund and the work of the Commission on Health Equity and whether what sort of role HSCRC would play in the expansion of those funds. Will they be shifting any responsibility? Will there be any requests for a fee for that work? And so overall, just given those questions and the wariness, they felt it was premature to completely remove the sunset. All that said, we're not completely tone deaf. We understand the HSCRC needs funding to do their work. And so we have a legislative process. We are talking to the committees, we are talking to our members to really understand what would be feasible moving forward. So we appreciate and respectfully request a little bit more time to work with this subcommittee, work with HSCRC to see if we can come to a place of compromise.
Deb or John, do you have a rebuttal? Go ahead, Deb.
John, unless you'd like to go, I'm
No,
happy
no,
to.
go ahead.
Thank you. So I just want to thank you, Natasha. I want to just respond to a couple things specifically that you said for the committee. The first is, this is not an automatic fee that increases with no end in sight. It's specifically capped at 0.1% of the revenues that hospitals incur on their regulated portion. Not your unregulated, but only on the regulated, which is what we regulate. And it's capped at 1.1%. So it rises and falls with hospital revenue. It does not go with no end in sight. Number two, as I mentioned before, it does not affect your bottom line. It's passed through, so there is no financial impact on hospitals. Thirdly, I understand the angst you have about AHEAD, and we all have to work together on that to make sure we're going in the right direction and it works for everyone, all parties in the state, legislators, regulators, and the industry. However, just as if the fiscal note said, AHEAD isn't part of their analysis. It says, because no one knows what AHEAD will cost. So when they say in 2026, we won't have enough money to do our work, that's talking about existing work. So what we need is a revenue source, not even thinking about AHEAD, that works for us, that we can do the work today based on what the legislature asks us to do in addition to what we do in statute. So we're not asking for this to continue because of AHEAD. We're asking this so we can continue to do the work today and be prepared to do the work tomorrow. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Deb. I
Thanks.
do want to make one just clarification on the no end in sight was just in reference to removing the sunsets, but I appreciate it.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Deb. Thanks, Natasha. Delegate Chisholm.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was looking at the fiscal note myself, and it says impact on Medicaid. Medicaid expenditures increased by as much as $315,409 in fiscal 2026, increasing to $963,267 in fiscal 2030. 60% federal, 40 general, due to increased hospital rates associated with higher user fee assessment. The thing that I guess I'm puzzled on is, why is it threefold? Why is it such a huge jump if we're only looking at that 0.1%? Where's the fiscal note writer getting them? Are we expecting a threefold increase in Medicaid spending if we pass this bill, I guess is my question. I don't quite understand where that number came from.
Deb or John, you need a minute to look at that?
It's at the bottom of the fiscal note under impact on Medicaid, which is obviously Medicaid's a huge problem for the state right now.
Yeah, I would need to take a quick look at that. So my so the Medicaid impact of this would not grow beyond what it is today, right? So it is a pass-through, so there is a small portion of this, about roughly 8 to 10% of this gets passed through to Medicaid. But again, it does not expand upon that impact. This would really not have a real measurable impact on the Medicaid budget.
And Delegate Chisholm, I don't have a specific answer for that, but I'm hoping that, and I don't see that Medicaid is on this call. So if you don't mind just giving us a quick time, we can check with them. Sarah, I see you're on. Maybe we can get a response for that specific question, but I hope that doesn't hold up the bill. So
yeah, that's one I'm working to see if I can get background on this one.
Thank you.
Delegate Chisholm, is this piece of information a showstopper for you, or?
I don't know if it's a show, I'd like to have some clarification, obviously, and I think, I've expressed, I don't want to push anything out that's going to expand Medicaid at this point, just because of what a problem is. And I don't know if it does. I just was hoping for an explanation. I mean, I know you want to get it if you want to get it through the committee, that's fine with me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Hill.
Yeah, it just seems like I'm just gonna piggyback on Delegate Chisholm's point. And maybe Debbie, should this affect Medicaid expenditures at all? Because this is not Medicaid expenditures, right? I mean, it sounds like they're writing about a different bill.
So that's what I need. Yeah.
Special
I'm not-
funds increased by as much as 1.6 million to reflect higher user fees, meaning if the hospitals are making more, right, 0.1% could go up by 1.6, but that's not a Medicaid expenditure.
We need to talk to Medicaid. I don't know the answer. I don't know why that's in the fiscal note. It wasn't part of any of our analysis at all. So if you don't mind, we will get that answer to you as quickly as possible. But this bill doesn't change. The only thing I can say that may make you feel slightly better at this time, until I know you clearly want that answer, every year, however Medicaid has been assessed, would continue to be assessed. This doesn't change any of the way any payer gets assessed for this in the rates.
And if I can just dig into it a little bit, I know we're waiting for the answer, but it may be able to work out. Medicaid expenditures account for 20% of total hospital revenues, correct? Okay, and increased Medicaid expenditures are therefore estimated to equal 20% of the special fund revenue. That seems like, does that follow for you, Deb?
Above my pay grade. John, I'm going to rely on you or Sarah because I'm not sure how that works. I'm sorry, but I can't answer a question I don't know the answer to.
Thank you.
That's correct, Delegate Hill. So because of the pass-through nature of this, right?
Explain what you mean by pass-through, John. I'm sorry. I want to be clear that I understand.
Yeah.
Your pass-through is my pass-through.
No, absolutely. So, the way that this is funded is, we add this to hospital rates, right? And then the assessment is made. So what that does is it makes it so that it's not coming out of a reduction in what hospitals are funded for operating costs, right? This is added on top of that. So because it's funded through a rate increase functionally, that rate increase is passed on to, in particular, Medicare, commercial payers, and Medicaid. So it doesn't sit on hospital margins. So that's what we mean by pass-through. It's pass-through in their rates. So a component of our budget every year is functionally funded by Medicaid, which of course has a federal match, etc. The incremental impact, though, is very, very small. Essentially, hospital revenue grows by 3 to 5% every year, right? So it's kind of tracks alongside general fund growth, et cetera, right? Most of these things move up 3 to 5%. So that it would be 0.1% of 3 to 5%. So it's a very, very small number that it would increase the Medicaid obligation or Medicaid component of hospital revenue. So I mean, it's a very, very small amount.
And a portion of that's federally funded too, so it's even smaller.
And then it's half of that total amount because of the federal match.
So we will have to. So I think you raised a good point about the fiscal note. We're going to have to figure that out. But that should not be a large number, so we have to talk to the
Well, it may not be,
After.
it may not be that it's a large number, it's just that 315,000 or 900, whatever they're, 963,000 is, sounds like a large number, but it may be because what we're really talking about are a couple $1 million, right? So, or tens of millions of dollars. So it's not a large number in comparison, but it looks like a large number to us. And maybe, John, you can have someone call me later because I'm totally confused now. So I would like to have a better understanding of how the payments are made and all that, separate from this. That explanation just showed me how much I don't know. Thank you.
Deb and John, would this bill change that at all? So
The same as it's always been.
It's the same, right?
questions that are
It
coming
hasn't
up
changed
from,
anything.
It's not relevant to this bill. I'm just
Correct.
confused.
Just
Yeah.
even before 3 years ago, when this bill was originally introduced, that created a different type of assessment. Previously, well, it still doesn't change anything. This is how it's operated since the beginning. That may not make you feel any better, Delegate Chisholm, because you want to understand the impact on Medicaid. So I totally understand. But from a bigger picture, this bill doesn't impact at all any of the funding structure, the structures before of how this would be paid by all ratepayers.
okay, thanks. Okay, so this issue is not really relevant to the bill, so let's move on with Delegate Alston.
Thank you. I was wondering if Natasha could speak more to why they want to just do an extension of the sunset as opposed to the repeal. What do you all believe is going to happen or could be happening with the head model that puts you in a position to say do the extension instead of the straight repeal?
Yes, thank you, Delegate. Just under the head model, there will be new statutory and regulatory duties and requirements of the HSCRC, the hospitals as implementation proceeds. And so it's really the questions there of what remains to be established, set up, what that looks like, the scope of that work that was giving them some angst. And so the extension to 2 years was to allow some time for those pieces to come together before a step is taken to just completely remove the sunset, to see, what is necessary before taking a step like that.
Can I have a follow-up?
Go ahead, Delegate Alston.
And I'm just curious, have you all had an opportunity to speak, the Hospital Association and the HSCRC, about doing the extension versus the repeal, and what has been the outcome of that? Or is this the first time on this call that you all are having this discussion?
No, this is not the first time we are having this discussion. We do work closely with HSCRC on a number of matters. As I said, we're not tone deaf to their concerns and needs. And we would like to continue to have those conversations with them, again, to see if we can get to some sort of compromise on our end. Just as the association, we want to make sure our members just have some answers to their questions, understands the sentiments of the committee, the needs of HSCRC, before we move forward. We just appreciate that opportunity to work through that a bit more.
Delegate Hill.
Thank you. I guess, Natasha, here's my problem or my question. I don't understand. I understand that you don't that the world is unpredictable under the ahead model, but since HRCRC and this fund can only retain more than 20%, I mean 20% above what their actual costs, or they can retain, the rest has to come back. So it's possible the ahead model will have less costs or more costs, but they can't take more than they can use. They can't just say we've got all this extra money, let's just hold on to it. So I don't really get the extension of the sunset, and I was looking for an answer, and then I was going to move, but I see Delegate Kaiser has a question. So explain to me, please. They don't get to keep. It's not like they are assessing you and they just get to keep all the money. And if they're assessing more than they can spend, the pot just grows and grows. So why is this an issue?
Yes, again, their concern is with, it is just with the unpredictability of exactly what is going to happen. And they'd like to have some of those questions answered.
Delegate Kaiser?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, this is a departmental bill, and we're hearing from HSCRC and the Hospital Association, but where is MDH on this amendment?
Let's see. Sarah?
Hi, I'm right here. My apologies. Is the question was focused on the amendment or on the bill in general?
On the amendment.
Our support is with HSCRC, and I believe on keeping the departmental where it is, and removing the sunset on this one. We're supporting our colleagues on this piece, and that's why, because we do think that this is an important piece and is an important part of the model going forward, and so we would support HSCRC on this.
I'd like
Thank
to
you.
move the bill.
I'm
Second,
sorry, Delegate Hill, I didn't hear what you said.
I would like to move the bill.
The bill.
second,
We have a motion and a second on the bill. All in favor of moving the bill as submitted, say aye.
Aye.
I, Kaiser says aye.
Is anyone opposed to moving favorably on the bill? Looks like it's unanimous in the subcommittee. Thanks, everyone. This was a very thorough discussion. I'm glad we had the luxury of only having one bill today, so we could really drill down on this one.
Mr. Chair, I just want to make sure I understand. So we didn't bring up the amendment at all? We didn't have to vote on the amendment?
No, you don't have to, and no one moved on the amendment, and so the bill is just moved as it is unamended.
I got you. Thank you, sir.
Anyone else have anything to add before I close the meeting? Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.